Hello and welcome to my channel, I Win to Lose Gaming. Kung Fu Panda, Yinhu, is now a playable panda in version 2.0. Unbearable Jack Black references aside, you'll learn everything you need to know in this ultimate guide video to become a Kung Fu master. Fortunately for me as a guide maker, Yinhu is arguably the simplest character in Zenless Zone Zero. He's a physical defense panda and is hardly smarter than the average bear. As usual, we'll go through his kit, drives and stats, Wenjins, Mindscapes, teams, a quick showcase, and finally, my opinion on pandas at the end of the video. This video was filmed on the early access server and is not indicative of the final product. There may be some changes on release, so be sure to check the comments down below to see if there are any. Yinhu's kit is extremely simple for a Zenless Zone Zero kit, with his basic attacks looking quite amusing, which is natural given it's a panda performing kung fu moves. Unfortunately, you won't often be amused by his basic attacks, dash attack, or dodge counter, because you have very little reason to use them. Now, everyone knows that every panda's value comes from their EX specials, and Yinhu is no exception. Like most Michelin chef pandas, Yinhu's EX special performs a Kung Fu Panda strike, which gives him 3 panda balls. He will also activate a quick assist to the previous character, and once you switch characters, he will start to Jack Black all over his enemies with 3 additional strikes, each strike consuming 1 of his panda balls. As part of his additional ability, each of these Jack Black strikes applies a debuff to the enemy, where you deal 20% additional damage to the enemy, and each hit extends the duration of this debuff by 10 seconds for up to a 30 seconds debuff time against the enemy. Against bosses, the debuff will be indicated by this debuff icon. More importantly, the character swapped on will gain a sheer force buff for 25 seconds, as indicated by this panda icon, of up to 540 sheer force at a rate of 18% of panda's attack stat. Also, his buff is based on his attack stat going into combat, so combat buffs do not improve his sheer force buff. So make sure he has 3000 attack in his stat page before entering combat. Now, what is sheer force? Sheer force is basically just the attack stat substitute for rupture agents, and thus it is a stat that is currently only used by Yixuan. So yeah, Panda's sheer force buff only buffs Yixuan and is literally useless on everyone else in the entire game. In this specific example, with the Mindscape 1 Panda, Yixuan is doing 55% more damage, which is a very substantial boost to Yixuan's damage. Now this next tip might change on release, but probably not, but when performing his EX special, you do have to wait a bit, until roughly when the quick assist triggers, to swap him off, or else you won't get the buff or the 3 balls. If this is changed, I'll put that in a pinned comment below, but basically just wait until the quick assist triggers before swapping off. Now, does the panda do anything else? Well, his ultimate lives up to his status as an endangered species by providing the equally endangered healing in Zenless Zone Zero. His ultimate deals a bit of damage and also heals your entire party, and at talent level 12, which honestly you shouldn't level it up to 12, he heals everyone for around 17% of their health. One more thing to note is that his additional ability, which provides the debuff against the enemy, requires him to be used with a rupture agent or someone in the same squad as him, which is, as of his release, literally only Yixuan. I do expect more rupture agents to be released in the future though, and he'll probably be able to support them as well. So for specifically Yixuan, Panda provides 540 sheer force or 720 sheer force at Mindscape 6. He also provides 20% bonus damage or 30% bonus damage at Mindscape 1. He can provide the standard drive set buff. And finally, he also provides a bit of full team healing. For literally every other character in the game, assuming Yixuan is not on the team, he only provides the drive set buff and full team healing, making him practically worthless on any other team. So yeah, he is just an extremely specialized support for agents that scale off of sheer force, which is currently just Yixuan. Now for Yinhu's rotation, use his EX special and quick assist to Yixuan, and that's literally it. You can use his ultimate when you have it available, and you can also use his defensive assist and assist follow-up when convenient. As for his talent priority, max out his core to provide the maximum sheer force buff. And after that, you can level his ultimate for more healing if you want to, but I wouldn't level anything else besides his core past level 9. You can level up his EX special a bit for a tiny bit more days and damage, and you can level up his assist for a bit more days as well. Lastly, his basics and dash can be your last priority. Up next are Pan Yinhu's drives and stats. As a wise master Wu Gui once said, "One must reach 3000 attack to maximize one's sheer force buff." Panda has 3 simple goals when it comes to his build. Reach 3000 attack to provide the maximum sheer force buff, equip a useful 4-piece set to buff Yixuan, and finally have energy recharge to use more EX specials to have good uptime on his buffs. Now these calcs are for his signature Wenjin, the Tremor Trigram Vessel, and 3 flat attack rolls and substats. This chart shows you how many attack percent rolls he needs with various combinations of stats and drive sets to reach 3000 attack. The chart is a bit big and honestly, you can go through it if you really want to, but the main takeaway from this chart is as follows. I recommend slot 4 attack percent, slot 5 attack percent, slot 6 energy recharge, and with this setup, with his signature Wenjin, you'll only need around 4 attack percent rolls with the Astral Voice, and around 7 attack percent rolls without either the Astral Voice or the Hormone Punk. For the 4-piece set, use Astral Voice, Swing Jazz, or Proto Punk, depending on the team and what your teammates are running. For example, if Astra Yao is on your team and she's using the Astral Voice, I recommend using the Proto Punk or the Swing Jazz on Panda. Just avoid overlapping the same drive set with Yixuan's 3rd teammate. For the 2-piece set, Swing Jazz is the best in my opinion thanks to the energy recharge, with 2-piece Hormone Punk or 2-piece Astral Voice not being useless since they make it easier to hit 3000 attack. But you can make up for that 10% attack through substats, whereas you can't make up for that 20% energy regen of Swing Jazz through substats. You can also consider the 2-piece Shockstar Disco with impact in slot 6, but honestly I don't really recommend this, as you'll have lower buff uptime, and this is likely only for people truly min-maxing for very specific stun windows, but I figured I'd mention it to be thorough, so overall for 99% of us, I recommend the aforementioned setups. Also, the reason why 2-piece Swing Jazz plus energy regen in slot 6 is my most recommended setup is because it brings Pan Yinhu's energy regen rate up to 2.81 energy per second regardless of his Wenjin option. This means that with his 25-second buff, he'll be able to cast his EX special once every 21 seconds with any Wenjin, allowing him to maintain 100% uptime on his buff. For substats, it honestly really doesn't matter, but just get enough attack percent and flat attack to reach 3000 attack. Theoretically, you can go for crit rate and crit damage substats after you reach 3000 attack, but it's not worth prioritizing. As you might have noticed, I haven't talked about his damage output through the entire video. Well, that's because he does very little damage, especially when played as a support, and he also does low days as well. He's literally just here to provide buffs to Yixuan and other potential future Rupture agents. So yeah, you could squeeze out every last bit of damage through crit subs, but for 96.9% of us, as the wise master Wu Gui once said, the juice ain't worth the squeeze. Up next are Kung Fu Panda's Wenjin options. Breaking news, his signature Wenjin, the Tremor Trigram Vessel, is surprisingly not his best option. His best option is Caesar's signature Wenjin, the Tusks of Fury. Now you will need a few more attack percent rolls, around 8 of them, but the additional team-wide bonus damage and impact it provides is well worth farming a few more attack percent substat rolls. After that, his signature 4-star Wenjin, the Tremor Trigram Vessel, is probably his next best option, as it does give him some energy every once in a while when you get hit or heal, and it boosts his damage by a little bit. And it having attack percent though as the secondary stat does make it much easier for him to reach 3000 attack. Then we have Seth's Wenjin, the Peacekeeper Specialized, and this is usable on him since the attack percent it provides makes it easier for him to reach 3000 attack, although its passive is largely useless. Next, there's the Event Wenjin, the Real Projector, which, I'm not gonna lie, provides a little bit of damage reduction when your character is over 50% HP, and that just does not sound very exciting to me. On top of this, you need a ton more attack percent rolls, around 14, which is actually quite difficult to get, making this not a great option in my opinion, but still the damage reduction is something and technically not useless, so if you do have a ton of attack percent substat rolls, then you can consider this thing. Then we have the Battle Pass Wenjin, the Spring's Embrace, which the energy regen buff it provides to the character swapping in is completely useless on Yixuan, since Yixuan has adrenaline and not energy. But this thing does have attack percent, thus making it easier for Panda to hit 3000 attack. Lastly, you can honestly just use any Wenjin with attack percent as a secondary stat, like the free-to-play friendly craftable attack class Wenjin, the Starlight Engine. While other class Wenjin passives don't work on him since he is a defense class agent, the attack percent secondary stat makes him easier to build, and it saves you some resources so you don't have to level up some random defense Wenjin if you already have one of these that's literally just collecting dust. Up next are Kung Fu Panda's Mindscapes.
Mindscapes.
Honestly, more important than his own damage is how he affects Yixuan's damage. At Mindscape 0, Panda should provide Yixuan around 46.5% more damage, assuming 2 stacks on the Astral Voice. At Mindscape 1, his debuff is now 30% bonus damage instead of 20%, further improving Yixuan's damage by a bit. Mindscapes 2, 3, 4, and 5 are literally just stepping stones to get to Mindscape 6, which improves his Sheer Force buff from 540 to 720 Sheer Force. And don't worry, you still only need 3000 attack, since it scales 24% now at Mindscape 6 instead of 18%. By Mindscape 6, Yixuan can expect to deal around 62% more damage thanks to Panda. Now, if you can tell by now, Pan Yinhu's teams are, well, extremely one-dimensional. His buffs only work for Yixuan, so his teams consist of Yixuan, him, and a third character. Personally, you will need to place Panda in the slot after Yixuan, so that way you will quick assist to Yixuan and therefore give her the buff. Anyway, for the third character, you can use any of the characters that kind of work with Yixuan, like Astro Yao, Caesar, Mindscape 6 Pulchra, Trigger, Lucy, Colada, or even Ambi. They can all work in this last slot. But let's be real, Jufufu is likely going to be the next best character for Yixuan in the third slot. Nicole can also work, but keep in mind that her defense shred is useless for Yixuan, but she does provide some other buffs to ether damage as well. So yeah, that was a very short team section because at the moment, only Yixuan can benefit from his Panda buffs. Alright, let's go through a quick showcase for Mr. Panda here. This one being a more free-to-play friendly build with his Mindscape 1. And he has over 3000 attack, a bit extra because it doesn't really matter. Now all of his talents are maxed, which is, a bit superfluous, but oh well. And for the 4-piece, we have the 4-piece Swing Jazz for this example, energy regen, attack percent, as well as Refinement 1 on his signature Wenjin. And for his teammates, we have the free-to-play friendly build with the Puzzle Sphere, as well as the 2-piece Branch and Blade, crit rate, and ether damage, and the 4-piece Yun Kui Tails. And then we have Pulchra as the third teammate, and she's using the new 4-piece King of the Summit, which gives some nice buffs, and she has crit rate, physical damage, and impact. Now she is at Mindscape 6, so do keep that in mind. And finally, for her Wenjin, she is using an upgrade 1 box cutter. Starting off with the free-to-play friendly team, we are going to take a quick run against the weekly boss UCC. So I actually came into this with absolutely no idea what I wanted to say about this because I kind of already covered this in my Yixuan video, but I guess this one is a bit more focused on the Panda. So unfortunately, I did not have a chance to test main DPS Panda. Unfortunately, I don't think it'll be very good, but with enough supports and where there's a will, there's a way, as Master Wu Gui probably never said. You can probably make it work in some of the content, but yeah, anyway. This is an interesting team because you actually have Pulchra as well as Panda, both trying to swap to the previous character, so it's a bit annoying. You actually want to swap off of Pulchra even before she triggers the quick assist, ideally, because her triggering the quick assist doesn't really help your team in any way, and it actually delays Panda's animation. But we can see here that I'm not accustomed to this team. This is my literally first time using Pulchra with Panda as well as Yixuan, so definitely some skill issues here. But regardless, I think this team is going to be pretty solid because also Pulchra is going to be on the banner, I believe. Correct me if I'm wrong, which means that hopefully you can reach a team similar to this. And the new drive set is really nice because you can provide up to 30% crit damage, which you love to see. And you do need M6 for Pulchra's generic, damage bonus buff. Otherwise, it's aftershock damage buff only. Anyway, this next team, I decided to upgrade the Panda to Mindscape 6. So now he is providing 720 sheer force to Yixuan instead of 540. And I also gave him the tusks. So, the team should stun a little bit faster, as well as have, a little bit more bonus damage. I think off the top of my head, was it 16%? Oh, geez. My memory is not great with this type of stuff. But we are also using Mindscape Zero, upgrade 1 Astra Yao. So here is the honest truth, in my opinion. Astra Yao, while she is probably Yixuan's best teammate right now, especially for the third slot, and even arguably a bit better than Panda at times. It's a bit hard to say. But regardless, the fact is I think Astra Yao, not only is she highly demanded in the more kind of standard teams, like, non-sheer force teams, she is going to be, likely replaced or power crept in the future, specifically for Yixuan, and not necessarily for the other teams, but for Yixuan, because once we get a sheer force character, or even Jufufu perhaps, we're going to have to replace either Panda or Astra Yao, and you're better off using Astra Yao on another team and slapping someone on like Jufufu, or perhaps even a future support agent that's just for sheer force. That's an S rank for Yixuan. So just keep that in mind, that while Astra Yao is, one of her best teammates, I do think that will change in the future. And speaking of which, in terms of Panda's fate for the future, there is also likely going to be, if I had to guess, an S-rank agent that, plays a similar role to Panda, but is of course an S-rank agent, excuse me, which changes everything in terms of, power level expectations and stuff like that. As we've seen, upgrading from the A-rank supports to Astra Yao, well, Astra Yao has been a very, very powerful character. We can expect, someone better than Panda to come along in the future, but who knows how long that will take and whether or not they will be significantly better than Panda. In my opinion, at least for me, I do plan to invest resources into him. And actually, personally, I haven't really had any issues when it comes to resources lately for leveling up characters in Zenless Zone Zero. And I don't know why. I mean, maybe this game just gives more resources, or maybe, okay. Also, I wanted to mention that this run is a bit scuffed. I completely messed up the second rotation, stun rotation for this, so the score is much lower than it should be. But anyway, I was just saying, like, I haven't even been doing resin refreshes or anything. And, well, battery refreshes, I guess, is what they're called in this game. So let me know if you guys are in a similar boat where resources aren't really the main issue, like for leveling characters and getting good drives and stuff. I think if you're a returning player or a new player, it will definitely be an issue. But for me, since I've been spending most of my battery since release, it has not been an issue for actually quite a while now. I think I've stockpiled enough to level probably 3 or 4 characters up to max. So yeah, anyway, if you guys are having a similar experience, let me know. Otherwise, let me know that you're not. So anyway, this team, of course, being upgraded from my previous Yixuan showcase video, it's going to do a little bit better. Even with such a scuffed run, this was literally just one attempt because I have to go to bed. It is already midnight. And yeah, so I think this team ended up getting about 46,000, which was a bit better than my previous attempt without M6 Panda and Tusks, which makes perfect sense. Now, as for my opinion on Yinhu as well as pandas, well, pandas are cute. And yeah, I guess Yinhu is kind of cute too. While Yinhu is a comparatively simple character, he has a very clearly defined niche, being honestly a very solid A rank supporter for sheer force scaling rupture characters moving forward. While we currently only have one rupture agent that scales off of sheer force, hopefully we'll get more in the future for Pan Yinhu to support. He is a simple panda, simply following the Ugui way of the Kung Fu Panda to reach 3000 attack to provide the maximum sheer force buff that one can provide. Now let me know what you think about Pan Yinhu down in the comments below. As always, I appreciate every single one of you. This is I Want to Lose, signing out.